Please join me in welcoming Eric McAfee. This slide deck will be available to you afterwards. I've actually put some slides at the end of it that we will not be showing, so if you're interested in any of the aspects, you might find that looking at the online version would be helpful. About 20 years ago, we started Aemetis with a strategy of doing what we thought the oil companies should be doing but didn't want to do. They would just buy the paper from folks like us who do it, and we found a synergistic bioeconomy kind of a strategy that I'm sure many of you have heard about. But we are a producer of many different kinds of renewable molecules, and today we're going to talk about some of the projects real quickly, but I'm going to actually focus today on the policies and incentives that all of you, I believe, need to understand a little more clearly, especially with the change in the presidential administration. Some of this is kind of a little bit of an earthquake underneath the industry, and the more you can understand how that earthquake is going to settle out, I think the better you're going to be. We're the largest ethanol producer in California, but I should note that the low carbon fuel standard every year for the next 20 years is going to provide fewer and fewer credits for the same amount of carbon intensity. So for the next 20 years, we will be focusing on how do you decarbonize the operation of a plant as well as the feedstocks. This is going to apply to anyone who is a biofuels producer. The 45Z production tax credit also compensates you for carbon intensity. And I think you're going to very quickly understand that if in 5 years you have not actively developed new innovative technologies and adopted them, then your incentives are shrinking. We are in, I'm going to point out Shrikant here. We are a very close friend and partner with Praj of India. They're the world's largest engineer and constructor of ethanol plants. They actually built our plant for Richard Branson and Vinod Khosla back in 2007. And we are currently completing the fabrication, actually about to ship this month, the equipment for what will be North America's first operating mechanical vapor recompression system at an ethanol plant. This is shifting our energy from petroleum natural gas with a positive 100 carbon intensity to grid electricity, which in California has a plan to actually get to zero carbon intensity. During the middle of the day, we produce more solar than we use in California. We actually have to sell it to other states, actually. So we are moving toward a decarbonized hydroelectric, solar, and wind grid and away from petroleum natural gas to stay ahead of that decarbonization curve. And Praj has been a tremendous technology partner as well as fabrication partner in that process. We have completed a decarbonization process. It's about a $12 million project supported with an $8 million grant from the California Energy Commission, fully operational solar project on site. Again, decarbonizing electricity and then moving our plant from being a natural gas powered plant to electricity is just a path toward decarbonizing the overall molecule and staying ahead of those incentives. We are building the world's largest single network of dairy renewable natural gas. We supply about 80 dairies with animal feed. It's a byproduct of the ethanol business. And so this is a bird's eye view of the 50 dairies we have signed. We have 15 or 16 of them operating. This is the process for capturing it. What I like about this particular industry is that unlike corn, where we spend over $100 million a year buying corn as our feedstock, in the biogas industry, the feedstock is free. It bubbles up out of a lagoon. Our job is to invest the CapEx to capture it, transport it, clean it up. And we have been operating this business, I think we started about 7 years ago as we saw incentives and mandates start to kick in, and now have been injecting for about 3 years into the local pipeline. So we're just building out dairy digesters for, we're NASDAQ listed public companies. For the stock analysts in the room, here's a bunch of data you can plug into your spreadsheets. The business we did in India was actually the first plant that I built when we started the company because I see India as a country without petroleum resources, and it has a unassailable mega trend of adopting biofuels. Recently, we've seen that prove out in ethanol. They went from a 1.5% blend of ethanol to 20%, and they're targeting 30% very soon. We are the largest biodiesel producer in India. We're expanding into ethanol and into biogas, quite frankly, and we're in the process of initial public offering of our India business to support that expansion. We bought a U.S. Army a base in Modesto. It gave us several advantages, including having a power line that runs right from the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir right across the top of the property. And we have fully developed a characterization well for carbon sequestration at the site. And we have fully permitted and have the authority to construct about a $600 million, 80 million gallon per year sustainable aviation fuel plant. This plant uses the technology from Topsoe. It's called Hydroflex. Allows you to run a renewable diesel or SAF and kind of dial back and forth between the two. So it has the flexibility to respond to market conditions, which has recently become very important. So let me get to the core of what I think is going to be relevant to many of you. The California Low Carbon Fuel Standard, probably 3 to 4 years late, adopted a 20-year extension of the LCFS credit environment. Now, it's about a 1.3 billion gallon ethanol market, it's about a 4 billion gallon diesel market, and it is virtually all of the low carbon renewable natural gas in the country ends up in California to power trucks. And so the California LCFS has been an incentive for most of North Americans, renewable ethanol for sure, but probably renewable diesel and biogas projects. And this is CARB's actual graph, saying that they were 3 years late. Credits fell from $218 in 2020 to $42 earlier this year, but that's all going to reverse. And that actually, if they didn't have a cap on it, the price would be way over $400 or $500 if they just let the market act. So they set up a cap, but that cap is 4 times higher than what it is today. That means you get 4 times as much revenue for the same amount of carbon reduction. This is a factor that 12 months from now should be on everybody's radar. We should have doubling between now and 12 months from now and a quadrupling within 24 months, because you will not have the RIN bank or the LCFS bank. You won't just have this pile of credits laying around 24 months from now. The second policy I think everybody's going to be paying attention to in the ethanol business, but derivatively we'll talk about how it affects everybody else, is that California, in a shocking event on October 2nd, legislatively bypassed the California Air Resources Board, who'd been fiddling around with this for a decade, and adopted the approval of 15% ethanol. It's a 50% increase in the market. It took us from 1.3 billion gallons to over 1.9 billion gallons because the legislature said so. Now, here's the point I think everybody should listen to. It wasn't decarbonization. It was lower cost fuel. And it wasn't the first time. They tried this last November and the governor blocked it. It had been approved unanimously by the Assembly and the governor blocked it. He pushed through an initiative to have more inventory of fuel sitting around in the traditional tanks, and that failed. And so ethanol was adopted because it's a lower cost fuel. When you put together the incentives and the core molecule, it was about 20 cents per gallon of savings for the average consumer in California, $2.7 billion a year. And that was enough to get a political wind to push E15. The only state in the United States that approved ethanol is California, which puts political pressure on the federal government, and I do expect to see the ethanol molecule at a 50% higher. That's almost 6 billion gallons per year of more demand by having a federal approval, which could happen in the next 2 months. So government shutdown probably is going to delay that a little bit, but the political winds are very strong when the guy in California wants to be president and he's a different party from the existing president. So pay attention to that. Many of your technologies are pre-treatment or a new feedstock. To have a 50%, 6 billion gallon new market just appear this month is going to be a milestone you might want to pay attention to. This is my last policy slide. If you have any friends in government, this process of adopting the 45Z production tax credit has been sluggish at best, riddled with mistakes under a prior administration. They took 2.5 years to come out with a guidance in January this year, and what they came out with in guidance in many ways was just wrong. And so our company has probably $40 million of 45Z that we should collect this year, and the amount of cash I have is exactly zero. because of regulatory delays of adopting the correct formula and the Treasury Department, most players in this industry have not been very good at monetizing the proper amount of 45Z production tax credits. So if you have political interests, if you have a relationship with the DOE or Treasury, I've been to Washington, D.C. over a dozen times this year, the legislation's in place, and frankly, the Treasury guidance is in place. The DOE spreadsheet's not correct. And when it does open up, which we hope will happen in the next couple months, you'll see a flood of new cash into the ethanol business for sure, and certainly put some life into both SAF and renewable diesel and some other derivative markets. But watch this very closely. This is the dawn of a new age in which $6 billion of new ethanol plants will be built in the U.S., funded by the production tax credit, which is a federal version of the LCFS. I should note that we're not talking about the Treasury or the Congress doing anything in 45Z calculations. It's literally one guy at the Department of Energy sitting down and typing for about 15 minutes and then hitting post and putting on the website. And that allows a legion of lawyers and tax accountants to go to that website and say, oh, that's how you calculate it. Right now, they're off by 90%. And so I put the chart here to indicate one of our molecules, which is a dairy renewable natural gas, is about a negative 375 carbon intensity. And right now, because they artificially stuck a number in there of negative 51, we lose 90% of that value under the current calculation. So you can see how it's going to unlock tremendous investment in low carbon molecules when they get the 45Z production tax credit to work. So if you have any questions, I will be around this morning, and obviously I'm always available outside of the conference, but I appreciate you coming, and I hope we can collaboratively support your efforts as well to show the oil industry how to help them, their petroleum molecules get decarbonized. Thank you for your time today.